Hey everyone, so as you can see from the title of this video, we have turned our truck in, and I wanted to briefly explain why we made this decision. So first off, I want to start off by saying the owners that we drove for the last 2.5 years, we absolutely have no hard feelings towards them. We love them very much. They are awesome people, and I can highly recommend someone working from them if someone ever asked me, because we really truly enjoyed having them as owners. This came down to a business decision for us that we had to make, and I will briefly give you a couple reasons why we made this decision. But just to let you know, we did turn the truck in. We worked out our notice. We are no longer working for those owners. We are still driving, and we are still with FedEx. We are not switching carriers. I've drove for FedEx for going on, this is my 8th year, and I have no need to switch to another carrier. FedEx is what I want to do. I enjoy the type of freight that we haul and the white glove services and the refrigerated freight, so I have no plans on switching carriers. So I've got a couple of points here that I wanted to go over. And when we started working for this owner, we started off in an older truck. We were in a 2009, and we were told that we would get a new truck, and they absolutely fulfilled that. Whenever it come time to get moved into the new truck, however, I have always driven a D unit with FedEx, and that is any truck that is dual axle or that can haul up to 13,000 pounds or more. And I've never driven anything else. So when it come time to get moved into this truck, at the last moment we found out that it was not going to be a dual axle, it was only a single axle. So I was a little apprehensive about that. Never driven anything other than a dual axle, and I was worried how that was going to affect our freight and staying moving and things. So at that time, me and Don sat down and had a lengthy discussion, and we decided that we were going to give it a year. We were going to see how our income was, if we were losing revenue, and make a decision at that point in time. So that's what we did. We got in that truck, we scaled the truck out, and found out that we could only haul 3,000 pounds with this truck. Now this truck was fully loaded with everything. It had all the bells and whistles. But having everything in that truck like it was, it limited us on the availability of how much we could haul. So this truck, you could tell, was set up to be a D truck, and at the last moment, a tag axle was never added. Being able to only haul 3,000 pounds, like I said, I was a little apprehensive, and I was worried about how that was going to affect our freight and our ability to stay moving. So with the truck that can only haul 3,000 pounds, I started thinking in the back of my mind, okay, what about the areas that we go to that are maybe a little worse, not great areas to get freight out of, or areas that are not high T-val areas, temperature validated freight? Are we going to be able to still get general freight that is usually heavier and stay moving? And I was worried about that. Now I know the majority of the freight that we haul, especially in temperature validated, we do a lot of pharmaceuticals, and that type of freight is very light. We can have 4, 5, 6 pallets and it be under 2,000 pounds. So we do a lot of light freight, and so I understand their reasoning for only doing the single axle, and plus it's cost savings by not dishing out the extra money for the axle. But I was worried about how that was going to affect us when we got into these areas that wasn't a high T-val area, and areas that was like general freight, which is usually heavier, be it automotive parts or something else. The other thing that I was worried about as time went on, FedEx, we noticed, has started lowering their rates, and I am definitely not one to haul cheap freight. I could never run for another company that has a contracted rate where you only run for $1.15, $1.20 a mile. I could never do that. I remember when I first started with FedEx years ago, temperature validated is a very high-end service that we offer to these customers, and every run we did was $2.50, $3 a mile. Over the years, that has come down, that has dropped considerably, and the reason being is because there are other companies that are starting to offer this service, and FedEx is trying to compete for that service. They're trying to compete with those rates, these lower rates that these other companies are offering. with the owners that we drove for, they had a minimum rate set forth in the contract. I'm not going to say what that minimum rate was just because I don't think it's very important. They have the right to set that rate at whatever they feel. That's their business. They have to make sure that they have the income to sustain the multiple vehicles that they have in their fleet, as well as pay the drivers. So I understand their reasoning behind it. And like I said, I'm not one to run cheap freight. So in a way, I was pushing for the higher rates as well. But on the other hand, you have FedEx lowering the rates and offering cheaper rates across the board. So it kind of, you have to balance it out and figure out what's more important. Do you want to maybe run a little bit less and stay moving, or do you want to sit and hold out for this higher rate? With that being said, they did have a rate that I felt was just a bit too high for what FedEx was offering now. Another part of the contract was we actually had to pay the difference if we took anything less than that minimum rate. So this is not the minimum rate, but I'll just throw a number out there. Let's just say that we did a run at $1.50 per mile, all miles. And when we look at the rate per mile, we go all miles. We consider loaded or unloaded the same. There's no difference in my eyes. Whether you're empty or whether you're loaded, if you're moving, it's your time as the driver, it's maintenance, wear and tear of the vehicle, it's fuel. In my eyes, it's the same thing. So I don't care if I'm loaded or I'm empty, you're going to pay me the same rate. But let's just say that FedEx offers something at $1.50 per mile, and if we accepted that, let's say the minimum was $1.70, which it wasn't, then we would owe the owner 20 cents per mile, all miles, the difference. And that was something that, you know, I'm not out here to pay the owner. I'm not out here to pay someone else to run freight and keep the roads hot. I'm out here to make money. So we absolutely, I think in the whole time we ran for them, twice we took something less than the minimum. And actually they were gracious enough to not charge that back to us. And we got really lucky on that part, but, you know, and we were not going to take anything less than the minimum rate because we were going to get that contractor rate, so we didn't have to worry about paying them back. But we needed to stay competitive, so with FedEx offering these cheaper rates and wanting to stay moving, you know, if you're in an area, especially like Los Angeles in California, if you're sitting out there and you have 6 other trucks around you, and it's, let's say that other trucks have already went ahead, it's your turn on the dispatch board to get out of there, but they offer a loadout at, you know, $1.60 per mile. It's below our minimum, so we would counter to be able to try to get the minimum, but we have a truck sitting next to us who would take it going back to Ohio at $1.60 or $1.65. So in turn, that left us sitting more and more and fighting pretty much every day trying to get something because there's these other trucks that are going to run the cheaper freight. So we did try working with them a little bit. We tried to get that number lowered. Unfortunately, we could not come to a mutual decision. And like I said, I really don't blame them because they have a business to run as well, and they know what they need revenue-wise to sustain that business. But on the other side, I'm running a business too. I'm an independent contractor. I have my own business. I know what I need to be able to sustain my bills and my income. So unfortunately, that's why we just could not come to a mutual decision. So all of that tied together is the reason why we left the current owners that we worked for. You know, as you've seen in my last couple of videos, we've been at home. We've just been enjoying some time off at this point. We did already have another owner set up before we ever put in our notice. We have another owner that we are going to start running for. The other owner that we are going with, they also have a minimum rate. But let me just say that things are a little bit different. With them, they don't look at it on a per mile or per run basis. With our old owner, we basically had to get that minimum rate at the time of dispatch on every run. With the new owner, they have a minimum rate, but they take everything for the month and average it out. So if we take a run that is $2 per mile, which out of the Northeast, we do a lot of pharmaceuticals and stuff, and usually the rates are up to that point. So if we take a run that is $2 per mile, but then we get into a bad areas where freight's not as plentiful, like Florida, and let's say they offer us something out of Orlando going all the way to Kansas at $1.65 a mile, then we can take that $1.65, and like I said, throughout the month, going back and forth like that, it all averages out, and if we can keep our average around the minimum that they're looking for, then they are happy with that. So we feel that that's going to be easier for us and allow us to maybe accept loads that are a little less on the pay scale than what we normally would to stay moving when we're in those bad areas. Or if we're in an area where there's 6 other trucks and we're trying to get out of there and get away from them and get moving. Another thing that they are okay with is if we go into a bad area, for example, Florida, if FedEx offers us a layover, then say that's in Atlanta, the new owners have no problem with us accepting that layover and going up to Atlanta and getting back in the freight line and getting freight and going. Or for that matter, if we don't get offered a layover at all, they've told us they don't have a problem with us deadheading to get back into the freight line. You know, if you sit in an area, let's say you're sitting in Indiana for 3 days and you don't get nothing, and this has happened with our previous owner, we sat for 3-4 days not getting our minimum rate, and then all of a sudden a load come up going to Florida at $2.25 per mile. I'm going to take that knowing that it's going to a bad area because I've already sat for 3-4 days and I need to make money. So previously we would do that and we would get down to Florida and then we would sit another 3-4 days waiting on a run, if not longer. But with the new owner, they would allow us to go ahead and deadhead out of there, get back up north, get back in the freight line, or we can make the decision to sit there a day and see what happens. And if we get something, great. If not, then go. So that is something that we're looking forward to, the ability to stay moving. And I think that's going to really help us and really stay competitive with these other trucks within FedEx and stay in the freight line and stay going. Another nice thing is they won't charge us back the difference if we take something less than what that minimum average is. They told us they would never call us at the end of the month and say, you know, well, our minimum is this and you are 10 cents below, so we're going to charge back the difference for all the miles. So that's another benefit, another plus. So those are just a few of the things of why we made the decision to go ahead and switch owners. Like I said, we are staying in trucking, we are staying with FedEx, and we just had to make a business decision to move on and work for someone else. So we will be hopefully getting into the truck within the next 1 to 2 weeks, and hopefully we can go ahead and get everything set up and get moving again, and I can get back to my usual routine, putting out our weekly recap videos. I've also even thought about maybe bumping it up to 2 videos a week. We'll see how things go, you know, if we're staying moving and things we're doing out there. And but we're definitely looking forward to just getting back on the road and getting back into the swing of things. We've definitely enjoyed our time off. We've enjoyed being at home. It was a nice break. However, I am ready to get back to work, and I'm ready to get back on the road. You know, once you start trucking, it gets in your blood, and you either love it or you hate it. And after sitting at home for a while like this, you know, you kind of start missing it. You miss the open road and the scenery and different things of going on out there. So guys, that's just a little bit of what's going on with us right now. So if you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I'll be happy to answer those the best I can. And again, thank you so much for watching and subscribing. We really do appreciate it. To everyone, keep those wheels a turning. And until our next video, take care.